Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my review for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 8, Caves. The usual spoiler warning does apply if for some weird reason you clicked on this video without having yet watched the episode. So I don't have a lot of time this week for my review, so let me get right to it. So this was another okay one. I really enjoyed the poking fun of the caves trope. It's not a trope that I really think a lot about. I always obsess on the virus trope and the trial trope. And I didn't really think about the fact that there have been a lot of episodes where characters get trapped in caves, and usually it has all the same cliches as this episode points out. The combat just don't work, and they make a comment about how there's 24th century technology is always stopped by caves. That was a nice touch. There's always some mysterious creature lurking. There's always some cave-in. All of those things always happen. And the best Lower Decks style, this episode does a great job of pointing out all of those cliches that we have seen a bunch in Star Trek in a brilliant way. Also, I really enjoy getting to see different characters and different character combinations we've never seen before or haven't seen enough of. So Levy, the conspiracy theory guy, this is the biggest platform he's ever gotten, and I quite enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed this conspiracy theory guy. So that was enjoyable. Having Rutherford paired with Dr. Tahana, pretty sure that's never happened before. That was enjoyable. And then Mariner making amends with the Delta Shift was also good, because the Delta Shift were just kind of flat, one-dimensional. So to have a little more depth into that was good as well. Where this episode loses me is that it appears to be presenting this moral, the story where our characters are all growing apart and not even sharing their adventures with each other. Like, now that they've become lieutenant junior grade, they're starting to drift apart, and this was a coming back together for them with this nice little scene at the end where they talk about something that happened after the very first episode of the series. So way back when all four of them first met each other, and getting stuck in the elevator or turbolift rather, and like how that brings them all together. The problem with this is coming out of complete fucking nowhere, like absolute nowhere. Since when have they been drifting apart? Since when do they not tell each other about their adventures? We've seen them go on adventures separate from each other with A plots and B plots and C plots and so forth, but they always come together at the end of the episode at that bar in 10 Forward, whatever you want to call that place, and it's usually implied that they're sharing their adventures with each other. Usually we have one character comment on another character's story, like, oh, I can't believe you did that. So it's usually pretty well implied that they are sharing their adventures. So this idea that Boimler would go off with Levy and have this whole adventure in a cave and not tell anyone is out of complete nowhere. I just don't buy that at all. That's a 0% chance of happening based on 4 seasons worth of evidence, or nearly now 4 seasons. And the same thing with Rutherford, like having a clone baby, that he wouldn't immediately go back and tell his friends this is unfathomable to me, especially now that he's rooming with Boimler. If this has supposedly happened since he roomed with Boimler, that he would not tell Boimler, and that they would not go and sit in the bar and talk about this. 0% chance. I do not buy this even a tiny little bit. And the Delta Shift thing, that's a big deal. Mariner should definitely have shared that, and I do not even a little bit buy that she wouldn't share it. Of course she would. So this is where the episode loses me. This feels like a manufactured plot. It's an absolute plot contrivance to manufacture this. All of a sudden they're drifting apart, even though we've had zero evidence of this through almost 4 seasons. In fact, we've seen in this season the exact opposite, that the characters are coming closer together. So this thing about them drifting apart and not sharing stories, I do not buy even a little tiny bit. And that is the biggest problem with this episode. Although another problem I have with this episode is that episode 5 was the big T'Len-centric episode, which I loved. A lot of other people loved. It's probably one of my favorites of the season. Since then, we have had 3 consecutive episodes with no T'Len at all, and that is a problem. Season 4 is kind of losing its way. I think it's kind of gotten mired in mediocrity at this point. We have 2 very mediocre episodes in a row. While it didn't have the peanut hamper episode that season 3 had, season 3 is at this point in time like clearly superior to season 4 in my opinion, and I don't see season 4 overtaking it or even catching up to it at this point. It just seems to be mired in mediocrity. I can only hope that the last 2 are actually really good episodes, but so far, we're kind of trapped in this mediocrity. I'm very disappointed in the writing of this episode of manufacturing this plot, having this big plot contrivance, which is, I think, beneath Lower Decks. Like, they don't usually resort to this. So I'm very disappointed and kind of, frankly, disturbed at the direction the show might go in the future if that's the kind of thing they're going to start doing now. So that is my big issue with the episode, where I have 2 issues. The no T'Len is also a minor issue. Now, I don't have a lot of time, as I said, so let me kind of quickly go through some of the highlights and the lowlights of this episode. We did have the Boimler and Levy story. By the way, I didn't mind the format of this episode where they're all telling stories about things that happened to them. I think my problem is, again, that they wouldn't have told each other this before. I don't buy it. But as far as the audience viewing this format, I don't mind it. And so to have Boimler stuck with Levy and like yell at Levy, like, nobody likes you just make shit up. And then, of course, for Levy to be right, of course he is in this case, is just kind of funny. But it doesn't like mean that Levy was right about everything that he's ever said. Like, Boimler's still like, yeah, you're still a conspiracy nut, but okay, you were right about this one thing. So I'm glad we got into that. I did not like, though, flash forwarding to the end of the episode, that they brought back the what do they call it? I keep wanting to call them Benzites, but Zenzites were the blue guys with the breathing apparatus. The Bendarians, maybe? I'm just going to call them the Bendarians. I did not like that they brought them back at the end and were like, oh, look, they learned a lesson. They now all got back together again, even though they never drifted apart, and this is a contrived plot. So I don't know, it just kind of, that ending just kind of drove home that this was a contrived plot for me. So I didn't like that they brought those guys back at the end. I didn't like that at all. But as far as the Boimler and Levy plot, I did enjoy it. Then we get this T'Ana and Rutherford story. Again, I'm just going to kind of put aside the fact that I don't buy the Rutherford would never have told them this, because I, have already repeatedly said that. Just looking at the story itself, I struggle to remember any interactions between Rutherford and Dr. Katana. I always say her name wrong. That was really enjoyable, and how she kept making comments about, yeah, I still hate engineers, but Rutherford's like, I'm the only engineer you like, huh? So kind of a little bonding experience for these 2 characters. And a concept that we've seen variations of in Star Trek, but I don't think it's one of those that's been overdone. The whole, aliens reproducing in some weird way. And, I think there was, the child. And there's been variations of this in Star Trek. But, yeah, I did enjoy that. I did enjoy that Rutherford comes up with the solution to communicate with that creature, and they found out this is a cliche thing that they're trying to protect the baby, but I think that all worked really well for me here. And then we have the Mariner, plot with the Delta Shift. And I'm going to restrain myself again from bitching about how there's no way she wouldn't have told them about this. But I do like that we finally have one of our characters connecting with the Delta Shift in a legitimate way. The last time we saw them, there was like a fake out where they appeared to be working together, but really the Delta Shift were actually still working against them and were still dicks. And for them to, admit like, well, nobody even cares about us because it's late at night and like we're never going to get promoted. I feel like there are ways around that. I feel like you're not just stuck never being promoted just because you're in the late shift. And I feel like Mariner should be able to help them with that, actually. And hopefully off screen she is. But I did like that that little coming together, using another Star Trek cliche of the turning old really fast thing. I didn't really care for the broken leg jokes. Like, that didn't really do it for me, but I did appreciate the connection Mariner was making with the Delta Shift. Then we have our last story of Tendi. Tendi was always trying to get this story out. Mariner kept shutting her down because it has nothing to do with caves. But the point is, it's what brings them all together. And again, my problem is they were never drifted apart. In fact, they have been coming closer together, as every bit of evidence has shown us in the show. So I see what they were trying to do, but it is contrived. It is so contrived. So I really, it just bugs me. So I don't know what to say about that. All right, I need to wrap this up and give my rating. Real quick, I do want to mention that this is the first episode in a while. I think only maybe the second one this year where we did not get any reference to the little ship that comes and disappears all the alien species. And actually, quite honestly, I'm a little disappointed in that because we had made some progress last week. So to not mention it at all this week is a little off-putting. Maybe this episode should have appeared earlier in the season. Actually, honestly, this episode shouldn't have appeared at all in the way that it was done because I don't buy that they were drifting apart. Anyways, let's go ahead and give my rating out of 10. So 1's lowest possible score, 10 is the lowest possible score. My rating out of 10 for Season 4, Episode 8 of Lower Decks is a 7. Believe me, I did consider a 6 here, but I think because there's just enough positives to bring it up to a 7. I did like a lot of the cave jokes. I like them pointing out the cliches of the caves. I did appreciate some of the stories here. I did like seeing some of the characters we don't see very often or combinations we don't see very often. I did like seeing Levy in the spotlight a little more, like the Delta Ship thing. So that was all good. So it is enough to bring this up to a 7. However, that contrived plot that comes completely out of nowhere makes it so that there's no way this could ever be higher than a 7 out of 10. All right, that does it for my review for Season 4, Episode 8. I will be back for Season 4, Episode 9. Hopefully we can start getting good ones. Hopefully we can get T'Len back next week. So join me as I review that one, and I will see you all very soon. Goodbye, everybody.